Hello friends, and welcome to AI with Supreet. In one of our videos, in all of our videos so far, we have used our prompts. And if you remember that in some of our prompts, in one of our videos, the second video, we read the prompt from the file. And when we do that, we also have so if you create and read the prompts from your files like this, then if you remember, this has a parameter and this is our prompt that we are reading from the file. And along with that, we also add a config.json file, which basically tells the system what some configuration about the prompt that we are writing or the semantic function or the plugin that we are writing, right? Now, in this config.json, there are a few things called description, and there is something called execution settings that has some parameters like max token, temperature, top P, presence penalty, and frequency penalty. Let's talk about this a little today. All right. So I have my learn.microsoft.com open over here, and if you go into prompt engineering and call configuring prompts here, this is where you will see what are the different parameters are associated with the prompts. Okay, so let's talk about that a little. Name is obviously the name of the prompt. Description is what does prompt, what is it that the prompts do. And this is extremely important in our future videos. When we'll talk about planners, you will see that planners are the agents that you can create that automatically pick up the prompt they want to execute based on the current task at hand. And when the planner need to figure out which prompt to call automatically on its own, they do that by reading their description and figuring out what their input variables are. So these things are absolutely very important when it comes to creating agents using planners. And this is something that again we will talk about later in the detail. For time being, this also helps us understand that if you have a complex AI application, you would have multiple prompts and semantic functions. So it also allows you to understand what prompt is created for what purpose and what are the input variables and how they are working, right? So when you create the prompt, you have to provide these values. And apart from these values, if you see that you will also need to provide something called execution settings. Now, these execution settings can be different for different models that you are using. So, for example, in this prompt here, we are saying that our prompt here is to create a chat assistant, and here are the input variables in history and the request. If you remember, these are the two things that we use. History was the entire history that we provided, and request is the user's request, the new input, right? Then let's talk about the execution settings. And as I said, what you can do is, if depending upon what model you are using, you can have different execution settings, and you can use multiple models with semantic kernel. For example, the default model in this case is OpenAI, but then you have GPT 3.5 Turbo or GPT 4 as well. And in each of the cases, you will see the values can differ if you want. Now, what are these values? Let's talk about that. These are called execution settings, right? Max tokens. So let's first understand what a token is. So when it comes to an AI model processing your text, it needs a token is nothing but the amount of text your AI model is processing. It could be the input text that you have given. Consider the case where you are summarizing a large text. So your input that you have shared that consists of the large text is broken down into tokens by the AI model. If, on the other hand, the model is generating some text for you based on your prompt, then again it is processing text. Again, the generated text that it is generating is consuming tokens. So the tokens are variables that the model uses, or you spend the tokens with the model to process the text, be it the input of the model or output of the models. And the max tokens here allows you to control how many tokens you want to spend while processing that request, right? And each of the models have a maximum limit of tokens they can process in one single request. So I would highly recommend that you go ahead and understand what is the maximum limit of the tokens that the model can process in a given request. And of course, use your max tokens below that or control it based on your specific needs. Let's talk about temperature a little. Temperature is a variable, is an execution setting that allows you to choose what is the randomness of the result that the model is going to generate. So if the value is between 0 and 1, if you keep it towards 0, it is going to give you more fact stable answers, no random answers. But if your job requires you to create with creative kind of output, then you can push it towards zero point 0.8, zero point 0.9 or 1. So the more it is nearer to 1, the more random answers it will generate. The more it is nearer to 0, it will generate stable answers for that, stable output for that. Now top P. Top P also is used to control the randomness of the output, but in a sense that the temperature value basically allows you to generate the overall randomness of the generated response. Now, what top P does is, out of that overall generated response that the model has already generated for you, which of how much of the tokens or the words that it has generated should it use in the final answer is controlled via the top P or nucleus sampling parameter. So let's say that you create an output, the model creates an output, and the model creates an output, and the value of top P is zero point 0.1. What it means is that out of the generated tokens, it will only use the top 10% to create the final answer. It will only use the words in the top 10% tokens to generate the final output for you. So these two in conjunction working with each other allows you to control the randomness and variability of the response generated from your model, right? Presence penalty and frequency penalty. Frequency penalty. Presence penalty. This number is between -2 and 2.0. So presence penalty, this is a number that varies between -2.0 and 2.0. And what it does basically is, if you read this, it says that positive values penalize new tokens based on whether they appear in the text so far. Let's understand that a little. So whenever the model is generating the response for you, it is using the tokens. And each time it is using the tokens, it understands what tokens it has used in the past. So if the value of this number is positive, the model is penalized when it is generating new tokens which has already been generated in the previous responses as well. So it penalized doing that. That increases the model's likelihood to talk about new topics. So in layman terms, if you want to make sure that each of your responses, the likelihood of your each of your responses is to generate or to talk about new topics, keep a positive value, right? Otherwise, if you want to uh, to keep it attached to the previous values that it has already talked about, keep it in the minus. That is the presence penalty. Let's talk about frequency penalty next. Again, this number is also between -2.0 and 2.0. Here, the positive values penalize new tokens based on their existing frequency in the text so far, which means if the tokens have already been generated in the previous sessions, and if the model generates the same token, same words again, then if the value is positive here, the model is penalized for that. So it decreases the model's likelihood to repeat the same line that it has generated in the past verbatim. So if you do not want the model to generate the same kind of response again and again and again and again, then keep the values to positive. These are some of the important execution setting parameters that you needed to that we all need to understand in order to control what kind of an output the model will generate. And I hope you will find this useful. In the next session, we will look into memory again. We will go back and talk about memory again using embeddings. And that's all for now. Thank you.